The Canon M50 is a great little camera and it comes with this little kit lens of 15 to 45mm. It's a great lens, it works well, and I'm not going to go into technical details. Let's just look at some video from it. This shot of the local pond is being taken at f7, which is right in the centre of the lens, and this has got no image stabilisation and it's at 15mm. This is exactly the same shot being taken now with the image stabilisation turned on. That's on the lens but not on the inside the camera, and what happens is you start to cut in on the picture slightly, so 15mm becomes just a little less useful if you're vlogging. I'm still at 15mm, but now I've got in-camera stabilisation going as well, so digital stabilisation is happening, and you can see the picture is starting to get cut into now. This is again 15mm, but now I've got enhanced stabilisation on, so that's the full stabilisation going on. You can see it really does cut into the picture, so if you want to use this lens for vlogging, it's really a little bit close if you're going to use the stabilisation fully. I'm now using the lens at 45mm, and the f-stop is now needed to go to 6.3, so I'm at f6.3, and this is 45mm without stabilisation. This is 45mm with all the stabilisation on, and you can see now how much this actually cuts into the picture, and almost looking like a telephoto lens in a way, although it's not, it's only slightly telephoto, because when you do the maths and add 1.5 to 45, you get somewhere around 60 something, 70mm, so it's a good portrait lens really. So this is what the lens looks like at 15mm, and I've got enhanced stabilisation going on. Now I'm going to zoom in just to show how much the zoom to 45 cuts in, and when I get to 45, which is about coming up to there, that's now 45, that shows you how much it actually cuts in. Actually at 45 I think it's a really nice lens length for portraits, but unfortunately for me I find the 15mm just a bit too close for vlogging. So for me, I want really something a little bit wider for vlogging. Although if you want to do portraits with something like a 15mm or less lens, it's going to affect the way your face looks. It can distort the face slightly, but this would be ideal for portraits, I think. Indoors, I generally use it round about there for my face, and that's only if I've got really bright light, because this doesn't really open up that much. So just to demonstrate vlogging distance, this lens is now at 15mm and I've got no stabilisation on. I'm hand holding it, although it's on a monopod, and that's about it. That's as much as you can get in. If I stretch my arm right out, that's how much I can get. If I hold it to sort of more natural sort of position, that's how close. But the problem is when you put the stabilisation on, I go back a bit, when you put the stabilisation on, it really cuts in, so I'll show that. And I think really this shows the problem that when you put the stabilisation on, which is what you're going to need when you're vlogging, it just gets that little bit too close. That's arm's length, so I'm now full arm's length. If I just bend my arm a bit, you can see it's getting really a bit too close, and also probably distorting my face a little bit. But when you're holding it at stretched out arms with the stabilisation on, that's what you're going to get. So for vlogging, this is probably just that little bit long, and you just need to go just below to say something like 12mm or 11mm. I think that would probably be better. But then having said that, for portrait stuff, you don't really want to use an 11 or 12mm because it's going to start distorting the face and pulling out the centre. So really what you need is something around 11 or 12 for vlogging, but then something somewhere around, I would say, well, this goes 15 to 45, I would say in the middle, somewhere around 30, 25 to 30 for portraits. So really you do need two lenses, I think. And once again, here I am on vlogging now and walking along, and as you can see, I'm at arm's length, and it's just too close really to be able to use this for a proper vlogging lens. Great for general purpose use, but really for walking along the road, it's just a little bit close. So now what I'm doing is I'm using the lens at 15mm, and I'm just walking along just to test the stabilisation and how this thing reacts. I'm not using a gimbal or anything like that, and I'm holding it on a handle, and 15mm does feel pretty close if you compare it to something like a GoPro. This to me feels very closed in and close. Certainly if I use the 45mm end, it's going to become quite difficult, I imagine, to hold. So I'm going to zoom in now to 45. Okay, now it is actually quite difficult to hold while you're walking. I'm at 45mm and I've got full stabilization on, and as you can see there's a bit of a kick in the picture every now and then with my footsteps. So really you've got to stay at the lower end if you're going to use this moving around, I think. Let's go back again. And there we are, back to 15mm. So I'd say for vlogging, stick to the 15mm end. And if you stick to the 15mm end, it'll hopefully stay reasonably still. Although to me, for vlogging, this does feel just that slight bit too long for me. It's definitely not like a GoPro, and actually it's also not like the Osmo Action either. It's pretty close. It feels close to me anyway. So I'm carrying on walking, and on screen it looks fairly stable. I'm now using the lens at f3.5, and what I've done is I've focused on the post, and I must say that the autofocusing really does hold it pretty well, just so you can see what the depth of field looks like. I'm just going to creep a little bit closer to see when this goes out of focus. So I'm getting nice and close, and I must say that is actually pretty close now. If that's in focus, it's doing very well. It's getting a bit silly now, sort of inches away. But that's the sort of thing you're going to get if you open the lens to 3.5. So from that video footage, you probably saw that 15mm is just a tad too close for vlogging. But I would say that a 15 to 45mm lens is a nice general all-purpose lens for photographing away from you. The 15mm end is great for landscapes and wide sort of scapes, things like that. If you think about it, 15mm in real terms is something like 15 plus 1.6, that's about 15 plus 8. So we're talking about 24mm. It's a 24mm wide lens, and at the top end it's a 45, which again times 1.5 roughly is about 70. So it's about 70. The wide end is great for general purpose videoing and into the middle, and when you go from the middle to the top end, that's really good for portraits. I would say though that if you are going to use the stabilization that comes with this lens and the stabilization with the camera, you've got to watch out when you're walking around, because that jello effect is actually quite nasty. It's quite strong. So I'm going to be playing around with the stabilization just to see if I can lose some of that wobbling in the background when I'm walking around. But I would also suggest, if you're going to vlog with this camera, to maybe just buy the body itself and get something like an 11 to 22mm. 11mm, we're talking about 15, 16mm in real terms. 22, we're talking about 30 something. It's a bit short for portraits perhaps, but that will be much more useful for vlogging type situations and would resemble more like the GoPro type of picture. So that's what I would recommend if you're going to do a lot of vlogging. Buy the camera only, the body, and then buy the lens separately. But if you want a general all-purpose lens, the 15 to 45 is pretty good, and it comes, really it's a bargain coming with the camera, where you don't pay the full price really for the lens. So it's a nice buy. So next time I think what we're going to do is look at the 11 to 22. Hope to see you there. Cheers for now.